Ange Matthews, thanks for joining us. You're an investment strategist and coach and founder of what you call the Happy Investor Method. You're here in Portland as part of FinCon, which I guess some people say is sort of like a Comic-Con for personal finance, a convention that's been underway for a couple of days. First of all, give us a little bit about your background, and just also want to note, too, I want people to know that our conversation is not meant as any endorsement of anyone or any product. It's strictly for just knowledge, information, and some background. So fill us in.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to be here in Portland to speak about personal finance because a lot of people still aren't sure about what their money is doing. And we're here as advocates of people understanding what their money can do and how it can really support them. Me personally, it's done so much in my life, and I'm excited to share the story of what it can do for other Americans.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, when I started investing, it was about 20 years ago. I was making $40,000 a year and I had six figures of debt. When I thought about how I'm going to responsibly pay off all this debt, it would have taken forever with what I was making. And that's when I started doing more research and I learned that what I wasn't doing was I wasn't investing my money wisely. I did okay at saving it, but I was never going to save the right amount. So what happened is I did a lot of work strategy research. I took many different classes and I started investing a portion of my savings. Now, when I started, the market was really tumultuous and it went up and down and I was really nervous. And what I didn't do was sell everything, which is what a lot of people do when the market does go down and they feel very nervous about it. Instead, I doubled down and I saw it as a one-day sale and I kept on purchasing things. And now today, we've amassed more than seven figures and we created a company showing others how to do the same. Because for some reason, even though they don't teach us this in school, it's something that we still really need to know and understand as adults.
Go back a little bit in time. How did you start saving money in the first place when, I mean, back then 40,000 still was a good salary, but for all the folks that are starting off, not making very much money at all, really struggling even to pay rent, what happens at that point?
I made some tough calls when it came to spending. If I knew that I wasn't going to be making more money, and at the time I did ask for a raise, but they said it wasn't in the budget. And so then I realized that I had to rewire my budget. And I really only did what was absolutely necessary. So an example would be at the time, iPhone was the biggest phone out there, and all of my friends and a lot of my family members were rushing to get the next version. However, I decided not to put my money into buying the phone, but instead what I did was I bought the stock, which was a lot cheaper than the actual phone. And so I stopped eating out as much and I stopped going on vacations. And what I decided to do was start investing.
That's good advice. The problem, though, is a lot of people who are in their 20s say, look, I don't see any prospect down the road that I'll be making a lot of money or as much money as I need for a home, even for a car at times. So they're discouraged at this point. What do you tell them?
I tell them that you have to figure out a way to have your money work for you. And maybe that means that you're going to have to pick up multiple jobs. When I was younger, thankfully you have more energy than say when you're older. But when I was younger, I definitely had two or three jobs at the same time. And I just really tried my hardest to make it work. And instead of saving a lot of what I made, I invested it because what I realized was I needed the money to make money faster. I needed a higher rate of return versus my savings account that was giving me maybe 2 or 3%. And so when I thought about it that way, I knew that it would take time and maybe it would take 5, 10, 15 years. But for me, it was at least the person in the future, 15-year plus me, would really appreciate what I'm doing right now to make it better. But I just realized just working wasn't going to be the answer.
When you talk about putting money away, it's hard for people to imagine how much they could put away, so to speak, when they really are living paycheck to paycheck, not just in their 20s, but in their 30s, their 40s, and really just can't get over that hill to save. I mean, are you talking about putting away $50, $100. I mean, those kinds of amounts because people think, well, that's really not going to end up being very much over time.
It does though. So when I started, it was $100 a paycheck. And I couldn't purchase the entire share of a company. I'd have to purchase a partial share, which is something that I'm very thankful exists for people who might be investing on a budget. And what I did was when I thought of, okay, if I can do $100 even a month, well, that's $1,200 a year, even at $100 a month. Then that's $25 a week if we were to break it down more. And if I could perhaps make lunch at home, if I could cut down on my spending, if when taxes came around, I ended up saving it or investing it and not spending it to, remodel my bedroom or buy something, then I could do that. And so what I would say is if you can even set aside a small amount, every bit adds up because that's some of your money that's working harder than the rest of your money out there.
There's still a lot of not a financial learning going on in the schools, I would say. There's not required classes. So there's a lot of people still who say, well, you say invest in the market. They don't even really know what that means or how to do that. Um, what do you recommend for the
Well,
learning curve?
for the learning curve is what I love is that in our day and age, you can internet search and you can have YouTube videos and tutorials. Of course, I don't advocate going down a rabbit hole, but we have a lot of apps that make it extremely friendly. And what you want to do is start getting information first. When I started investing, I didn't take all of my savings and just throw it into the market. That's very risky. You are at your weakest as an investor then because you don't know the rules of the game. You don't know how you're going to do. So, what I would recommend is go and read a book. There's things called investing for dummies. Not that you're a dummy, but you want something that's going to really make it approachable. And I love apps like Plink, which is Plynk, but it's an app and it teaches you while you're investing. And so as you're going through, and I'm here at FinCon and they're one of the companies here, and I love their platform because they're educating people. It's not just give me your money and invest your hard-earned money. You can do a simulator or a play account and play first before you put your hard-earned money in it first.
Good information. A lot of people say, well, you shouldn't just start willy nilly buying stocks if you don't really know what you're doing. You should buy perhaps a 500 index fund to sort of get started without risking a lot. Is that still the sense for beginners?
I like a both and approach. So I think it's always wise to invest in the market as a whole, which could be a fund, whether it reflects the S&P 500 or the Dow, it doesn't matter. But when they say invest in the market, that's typically what people mean. They mean to get a fund that reflects a lot of the companies that are traded. What's really nice about that is you don't really have to do the hard work of thinking. Someone's already thought it out for you, and you're investing in everything. But I do think there are certain things that we have that give us this unique advantage. And so, an example would be when I was working and I started investing, I was working at a tech company and I would invest in Google or Netflix. I invested in Apple, things that I knew very well as someone who was working in the industry. I tell some of our clients too, who might be nurses or working in the medical fields, what would it look like to invest in industries that you're around, whether it's healthcare or insurance, even medical supplies, because you have firsthand knowledge of how that company is doing as a user. So I think there's a way to approach it as a both and invest in individual stocks that you know very well as the entire market.
So it is sort of a bit of that go with what you know.
I think if you know it intimately, then yes, of course, you want to look at the numbers and the financials of a company. Every company has a report card and they talk about how much money they're making or not making. I'm a firm believer that if you don't understand how the company is making money, you can't expect them to make you money. So you do want to do your research if you're going to invest in individual companies.
What's the happy investor method that you champion?
The happy investor method is our framework that we have that helps people find investments that match their personalities as well as their temperament. A lot of people, when they approach the conversation of investing, they might have a lack of confidence. They might think it's confusing, scary, intimidating, but we wanted to let people know straight on we're going for happiness here. We want you to have positive emotions when it comes to having your money grow. So we created the Happy Investor Method as a way to show people, even if you invest small amounts, it can yield big returns, especially if you do it in a way that gives you joy. It will motivate you to keep on going.
It's something that you feel people can actually do themselves. A lot of times people think, oh, I need to go to a company or it's not something I can do myself, but people can and do.
They can and they do. I think there's a misconception out there that you might not be smart enough or the regular person might not be wise enough to handle their own investments or their money. But I'm of the belief that if you did all the work of earning it, well, then you are also very confident in learning what to do to make it grow. And that doesn't mean it has to be all or nothing. It's okay to have an advisor and a partner to make your money grow. I call it having your A team. And so I'm Ange and I have an A team, a group of counselors, whether this is books or podcasts or an actual advisor, myself, we're all responsible for having my money grow. And so what I want you to do is I want you to think of who is on your team to help your money grow. And you have to be the person at that table. You cannot take a hands-off approach to your money because in the end of the day, if you don't get it right, you're the one who's going to feel the impact the most. So I am a fan of being your own champion, educating yourself. Odds are if you're a professional or if you've had education, you can understand this.
Probably hard for you to imagine, but there are still plenty of people who keep their cash at home because they can watch their money literally. It's a little disheartening, I think, at times for people right now in terms of investing when they see the savings accounts and banks paying hardly anything, money markets only a couple of percent. So they see, well, why should I sort of take the risk when I can just keep it? What do you tell these folks?
I work with a lot of folks who do this. And what I say is that could have been that is your hard-earned money. And at the end of the day, when you come home and you check your accounts, your money sat there and it didn't grow, but you were the one who went out and worked really hard. And what you want to do is create a space where at some point the roles get flipped, where you're home, you're work optional, or you're retired, and your money is working just as hard as you used to. So whether you spend it or not, it's going to go down. With taxes, inflation, you're going to have to figure out how to have your money start making more money or at least growing. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to take on a lot of risk. There are more conservative investments that you can take that aren't as risky. But I would suggest maybe taking a small amount of that money, not a huge amount, maybe 10%, and invest it and see how it feels. See if it grows. If it grows, great. You made a little bit more money. If it doesn't grow, great. You learned a good lesson and you still have 90% of your money there in the way that you had it before. So I think you really have to start thinking about your money outlasting you. You want it to always be there for you. And as long as things keep getting more expensive, which, as we all know, it will continue to, you're going to have to start thinking how to make that money start growing because it's doing nothing for you there.
I think a lot of people like hearing that advice of baby steps. You don't have to jump in with both feet and hope it works.
Put a toe in the water. That's the way I say it.
What about for teens who are making a little bit of money? They're trying to figure out what they're going to do in life, but they're in the teen years. Perhaps they haven't gone into the full time work world or college yet. What would you tell them?
I would tell teens to start before you're ready. You've got a long way with your money. You have a lot of time to learn, to make mistakes, and it's going to be the cheapest ever for investing is right now when you're younger. The longer you take, the more expensive companies get, the more expensive it is to actually start building and getting gains. And so when you're younger, instead of buying new sneakers, new clothes, the latest video games, really take a portion of that and just put it away into perhaps even the companies that you're using, the sneaker company you're buying from, or the video game company that you're purchasing. Maybe try to think of yourself as an owner and not just a consumer. And start small. Even if it's $5, you can still invest in a company with just $5. And you can do that. Build that habit because you don't know when you're going to need that money. And if you're a parent with a teenager, you don't want them to necessarily end up like most of Americans where they're not comfortable with their money. We have to start teaching our kids how to handle their money as it comes in so that they don't make the mistakes that we make or are continuing to make. We want it to be a household conversation.
What about those that are in the work world for a while and are starting to look ahead and say, well, I'd like to buy a home. I'd like to make some of these big purchases, so I don't really have money to put away.
To me, I just think that you have to figure it out. Maybe that means getting a certification and getting a new job, an additional job, or advocating for yourself and looking for another job that's higher paying. Maybe that means getting something on the side or selling some of the things that you have in your home that you're not using anymore. But either you're going to make more money or you're going to spend less money. But you need to have something to start. And a lot of times, I think people are on auto. We don't realize that we have so many entertainment accounts. We've got Netflix, maybe you've got Disney Plus, maybe you've got all these things. It adds up. Maybe you have a phone bill and you're not actually using your phone that much, and maybe you can downgrade your plan. There are different strategies you can use to use less money. And I know it might feel as if it's not worth it, but it does add up. And I know you might feel, no, there's nothing out there. Go through your credit card statement and make a commitment to maybe getting rid of at least 5 purchases that you don't technically need.
Third group are seniors who are at that retirement age. What about for them?
But I would say is even when you're at the retirement age and you think that, hey, it's some folks think it's too late for them. They think, well, the boat has come, it's gone, and there's nothing I can do to change my situation. I want to say that it's never too late to have a better relationship with your money, especially if you're entering the world of a fixed income. And when I say that, I mean, for a lot of people, they might have Social Security, they might have a pension or old retirement account, but you need to see what you're invested in. You want to see, hey, because I'm getting closer to retirement, has the strategy changed? Because when you started working, maybe you elected for a certain fund, but as you're getting closer to retirement, they start shifting that to more conservative investments. So you want to start making a plan. You want to look at what you have so far and actually calculate what you're going to need in retirement. And then you want to talk to someone to see if you have enough or if it's even okay to retire right now. Maybe you might have to continue working for a year or two to get the amount you need to really have a good monthly income.
Do you
But
ever
you need to
come,
start focusing.
sorry, do you ever come across people who almost have the reverse, where they're afraid to spend the money?
I do. And it's really a fear of of not having enough forever. And so they keep saving their money because they're thinking, I don't know when I'm ever going to need it. And it comes to a point where you've got quite a bit of money saved up, but you haven't actually lived your life because you're so focused on saving. And there are a lot of clients that I have who are older and, they come to the happy investor method and they say, I don't know what to do with all this money now. Now I want to start investing because I think I have more than enough. And so if you look and you actually say, hey, if I were to live for another 40 years and I divide this out, how much money would I have over 40 years? And you still have an extra surplus? Well, that means you probably should start thinking about spending your money, having a good time with loved ones, taking a vacation every once in a while, because the money is there for you to live your life and provide and protect you. It's not just there to watch it grow.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people think, really, are people in that position? But as you mentioned, you do have people that are that way, sort of the ultimate savers, right?
There are, and I like to think that if it can happen for them, it can happen to you. Or I tell people, for me who I had 6 figures in debt and now we have jumped so many income brackets in one lifetime. I don't think this would have been possible 50 years ago. And so I do think that if it can happen to someone else, you can try to figure out how you can get similar results by really educating yourself, making a commitment, making tough decisions, and just trying really hard to to win on your terms. And so that's why I say it to let people know because people might not know that it's possible to be a hotel owner. People might not know that it's possible to retire their parents or to put their kids through college based on actions they did just a few short years ago.
That seems like an impossible dream, though, to many people.
For many people, it is, but I think if you actually think that again, if it can happen to someone else, why can't it happen to you? And it might not be to the full extent. Of course, there are billionaires out there, and odds are a lot of us aren't going to be billionaires. But it's about getting to the next level of comfort for yourself. It might not be becoming a multimillionaire. It might not even be to the point where you have, all of this excess cash. But it is about taking the one next best step to making your life better.
What's the one final piece you would say to people? Like, if you take away one thing from this conversation, this is really important.
You need to start before you're ready. A lot of times we delay investing and having conversations with our money because we feel that we have to know it all. But the way you get ahead is actually by trying and practicing. And so you have to start sooner than later. I know at the Happy Investor Method, we do a lot of free classes and webinars and online teaching because I think people don't understand what it takes to be successful. And we just want to show you the way. And so if you're thinking that this is something that you might want to start exploring, please go to our site, check out the Happy Investor Method or happyinvestormethod.com. And there is resources for you. Your local government has resources. There's an investor.gov. You don't have to suffer in silence. You really need to figure it out sooner than later because we don't know what the future holds. And I want you to be comfortable and happy regardless.
Ange Matthews, thanks for joining me. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
You too.